Welcome everybody. Welcome to the third SFIA 9 launch webinars. We've held two previously to this today. Both have been well over 100 people attending, and I think it was 174 in the for us mid-morning webinar. So this is mainly to catch those people west of the UK. We looked at the attendance list, and there's a considerable number of names that we don't recognize as being long-term SFIA users. So we have a very varied audience, and we'll accommodate that rather than dive down into the lowest level of detail that might be relevant to the very experienced SFIA users. We can use the Q&A for any questions. We will try and answer any as we go along, but if we can't, we'll follow up after this event. Can you use the chat for anything you want to say, or to announce where you are dialing in from? It's always interesting to know which countries we actually get to along to these events. We are planning after this event to have a number of others that will respond to possible queries that people have. So at the end, we have a form available where people can request a discussion topic or something to cover in greater detail, but more of that later. So, first of all, a big thanks for everyone to attend this webinar, and also a big thanks to all of the people, the companies from all over the world who have contributed to SFIA 9 Refresh. We are an incredibly lean organization, which means that what we achieve is only really possible because of the large global community that is willing to share and contribute. I'll also say a thanks to our design authority. We have a smaller group of volunteers from several countries who actually come together regularly at fairly odd times for some of them to discuss and debate the requests for change that we get. And we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that they give a considerable amount of time to help put the SFIA framework together. So today, because we've got a varied audience, we'll cover a little bit about the SFIA Foundation and its objectives. We'll also look specifically at the SFIA update process. Then we'll dive into the SFIA 9, the framework itself. Then we'll look at how and what might be necessary to move from, let's say, SFIA 8 to SFIA 9. And we'll also look at some of the other support assets that the SFIA Foundation provides as part of making SFIA easier to use, easier to consume, and then very briefly talk about what next. So I mentioned we have a varied audience, some experienced SFIA users, some new. We have we've seen over the years an increasing number of HR and L&D professionals take an interest in SFIA. So what we're doing here at this launch event today is we'll present the big picture of why SFIA, what the context for SFIA is, an overview of the SFIA framework and specifically SFIA 9, and a little bit of a look at the SFIA community and the ecosystem. We'll talk about specifically what information is available on the website for SFIA 9, and we are proposing that after a short period of time, perhaps a couple of weeks or so, we offer some follow-up sessions where after you've had time to digest what we have presented and what's available on the website, you can request either a deep dive into aspects of SFIA 9. You might have specific questions, and we will do those on a much more interactive basis, possibly by having some small groups according to people's interests. By all means, put comments in the chat as to what you'd like follow-up sessions on, but you can also use the form that's going to be presented at the end of this session. So into a little bit about the SFIA Foundation. We hear a lot from industry talking about upskilling, reskilling, job mobility, skills-based organizations, workforce management, career paths, talent management. in many ways, that's not new. That was the reason why SFIA was developed in the for the year 2000. But in order to address those aspects that industry is interested in, you need systematic processes for workforce planning, skills acquisition or recruitment, development, deployment of skills, assessment of skills, and development of individuals, the skills and competencies that they have. In order to do that, you need a common framework, a common language for skills, and that is what SFIA is. So developed for the year 2000, SFIA was developed to reflect industry and professional employment. It was designed to be useful and usable by employers. And over the years, we have persisted in making sure that SFIA as a framework is consistent and reliable, and that includes the reliability of updates and refreshes. SFIA is available under license. Most people use it free of charge, but our whole philosophy is one of openness and making sure that the framework is available. After 25 years of supporting SFIA, it's well tried and well tested. It is now globally supported and has become a truly trusted resource for industry. One of the powers of SFIA that has come to light very recently is that in order to have effective generative AI solutions with regards to skills, it's essential to have a consistent and trusted resource. And that's exactly what SFIA is. So all of that together is summarized in some of these points. First, created in the year 2000 because frameworks at the time were not useful to industry for workforce development. SFIA is refreshed every 3 years to make sure that it remains current and relevant and continue to meet industry needs. All of the changes and updates to SFIA come directly from industry requirements from organizations that are developing their workforces. We're fortunate to find that because SFIA is useful and usable by industry, it has become widely adopted. We never set out, SFIA was created in the UK, we never set out to go global, but it has just happened. As a result of that, we now have a much greater global community, which is offering content and input into the SFIA framework going forward. And over the years, that has turned into a very engaged global community and a number of organizations and people who are not only enthusiastic to share, but very happy to be involved in developing more and more support assets for everyone to use. We have a 24-year track record of usability. We have a consistent and reliable framework, and people know that SFIA is kept up to date, which is one of its unique properties, and in particular, that has given industry confidence in using SFIA and in adopting SFIA. All of that together looks like this picture. I'm not planning to go through it in detail, but the thing to note really that is that we've gradually increased the number of languages in response to users around the world wanting SFIA in their own language. And particularly since around the year 2015, we have listened much more to global industry and in effect added more and more support assets to enable people to use SFIA. And the more we have provided, the greater the greater use of SFIA there is, and the more they want. And so there's this escalation of support assets that we and the community have developed to enable people to use SFIA effectively. It is just a moment in time. We will continue to develop aspects and assets for using SFIA and continue to get input from industry for how SFIA should change in the future. So SFIA is very much a global ecosystem designed and primarily there to support employers. But as a result of that, many types of organizations and stakeholders actually use SFIA. Individuals use SFIA to develop their personal skills. Professional bodies use SFIA for certification and registration. There are a number of organizations, accredited partners and consultants who provide consultancy services to people and organizations who want to adopt SFIA. We have a number of education providers, training providers who map their offerings to SFIA. We link to over 50 bodies of knowledge, and there are various partners, a small number of partners who are licensed to include SFIA in their products in order to sell commercially and exploit commercially. What that means is we have developed much more in order to support those. Apart from the core framework itself, there are SFIA views, for example, which describe how SFIA can be used in different environments. There's a view for cybersecurity, there's a view for cloud computing, a view for DevOps, agile computing. So there's a number of views being prepared. Some of those exist at the moment and have been brought up to SFIA 9 from SFIA 8, and we will undoubtedly create some others as necessary. We have sample role profiles, which have proved very useful to organizations to get started. We have an accreditation process for SFIA consultants. We have SFIA training available. We have embarked on digital badging, as many organizations are interested in assessment. We've provided guidelines for assessment. There's a user reference guide, various framework mappings, and mappings to bodies of knowledge. So the SFIA Foundation is an independent, global, not-for-profit foundation driven by industry and employers. We have a board that's international, and the objective, the purpose of SFIA is to enable greater capability and capacity within the global digital workforce. And in order to achieve that, we have a number of what we call imperatives, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll be focusing on numbers 1 and 3 today. Number 1 is regards to the update of the framework, and number 3 is about promoting effective use, making SFIA easier to consume. So our update process. We listen to what industry wants, we decide what we can do to support them, we check back with industry, and then ultimately we release a new release, which is what we are doing today, SFIA 9. The feedback from users can be anything. It can be themes that people want to talk about and focus on and research and decide how they're best to address. A theme might be, for example, cybersecurity again, or cloud computing, or AI. We often run workshops where groups of users get together to debate particular topics. We have input from SFIA Council, Design Authority, from direct discussions with industry and users. And there is a real change request process where people can raise changes, and that goes formally into the system, or we raise the changes as a result of workshops and discussions with individuals. And of course, we learn from previous versions of SFIA, so particularly in this case, the use of SFIA 8. We put all of that together and we have a design authority that reviews it, and we make decisions as to what we can do, which may result in a change to the SFIA framework itself. It may require an update or refinement to SFIA guidance material, but not the framework itself. It may be as simple as enhanced explanation or presentation on the website. It could be the development of new additional user assets, and in some cases it's not an appropriate thing for SFIA to do, and if that's the case, we don't do it, and we explain why. We rely entirely on volunteers to do this work. Whether they're working groups or individuals, they come together to provide the expert input for particular areas that they're specialists in. Throughout, we maintain visibility. So people have been able to see SFIA 9 being built We provide monthly newsletters to say what we're up to, but the SFIA 9 has been built completely in the open. It's been visible on the website as it has been created. We freeze it at a particular point for a beta release where it is tried and tested by industry, and then at a particular point, and in this case today, that then becomes the formal release. And as of today, SFIA 9 is released in English for the global community to make use of. So let's look specifically at SFIA 9, what has happened, what is there, what is in the framework. And you can split this into three areas. The first is core changes to the core framework. The levels of responsibility, the SFIA professional skills, the SFIA generic attributes. But it's worth remembering all the time that SFIA is built incrementally. So SFIA 9 looks very similar to SFIA 8, and SFIA 8 looked very similar to SFIA 7. So we build on that capability. We have also refreshed aspects that are presented on the website to make SFIA easier to use. And we have also refreshed and updated guidance and supporting assets, which are to enable people to make use of the SFIA framework. But what hasn't changed? SFIA is still a straightforward 7-level framework that integrates levels of responsibility, professional skills, generic attributes, business skills and behaviors, along with knowledge to reflect experience within the professional real-world working environment. It focuses on what industry employers need in order to develop their workforce. The framework itself, the concepts, the values, the framework integrity, all are the same in SFIA 9. The relationship and integration of the components is the same as it's always been. The approach to the framework refresh is the same, and our focus on industry and employment remains. SFIA is still a 7-level framework of responsibilities, and promoting from levels 1 to level 7, or progressing from levels 1 to level 7, is about increasing responsibility, accountability and impact in the professional workplace, and that is determined by autonomy, influence, complexity, business skills and behavioral factors and knowledge. And they're the generic attributes. That structure is still the same. That is the core, the backbone of SFIA, and it is the components that make SFIA universally applicable and universally liked by industry. That all remains. So what have we done for SFIA 9? We've looked at what we need to do for release. So we've prepared all of the materials for that. We have looked at refreshing the SFIA levels of responsibility, the generic attributes and how they're described. We've looked at professional skills that are in SFIA, added new ones where required, modified existing ones. Either directly because they are skills requested by individuals explicitly, or because by looking at the specific application of SFIA in particular environments has led to changes to the skill. And then we've also addressed aspects of making SFIA easier to use. So for example, we've looked at support for entry-level roles. That has impacted a number of skills. We've looked at AI in particular. That has impacted a number of skills. Cloud computing has impacted many of the data skills. We've looked at cybersecurity again as a topic as a whole. That's resulted in 2 new skills and refreshment of a number of other skills. We've looked specifically at digital health roles and what's necessary for SFIA to be used in that environment. And then in the lighter blue colors, we've extended SFIA with regards to financial and value management, procurement, bid and proposal management, marketing, data and analytics, and information and records management. So a full refresh of everything, but some real themes that have come out. We've also looked at explaining how SFIA works. It is, in the past, it has been easy to miss the integration of the levels of responsibility, generic attributes, and the professional skills. So we have gone back to look at how we have described that in the past, and we have updated that so that now how SFIA works is a more complete and easier to use explanation of how the framework works. That's resulted in a new diagram, if you like, a new way of explaining SFIA, and that's what's presented on the right-hand side, where professional competency is a mixture of the levels of responsibility and professional skills, the levels of responsibility being determined by autonomy, influence, and complexity. They address scope and impact in the workplace. Business skills, behavioral factors, and knowledge are all elements that are necessary in order to have impact in the workplace, in order to achieve it and to be effective at doing so. That is all carried over. It's always been carried over into the professional skills, but we've made it much more explicit in SFIA 9 so that it is difficult to be ignored now or to be missed. And in particular, one of the strengths of SFIA 9 is we brought out a summary in each of the levels of autonomy, influence, and complexity into an essence statement. So SFIA covers a broad set of professional skills, and it's getting broader. And how does it look now? So with regards to the generic attributes refresh, in SFIA 8, we did two very significant things. The first was a complete rewrite of SFIA for improved readability. It didn't change the content of the skills particularly, but it made it easier to read and much more easy to access. We also produced a glossary of behavioral factors. That was a PDF download, and it showed where the behavioral factors were within the generic attributes. Prior to this, there was a block of text which had them all in, but it was not obvious, and the behavioral factor glossary was a particularly popular download. It told you where the behavioral factors were in SFIA. Having done that, people said, well, why don't you bring them out explicitly and apply the same rewrite guidance as you did to the professional skills for SFIA 8. So that is what we have done. So whilst the content is very similar in terms of what's in business skills, we now have brought out that content explicitly with individual headings for the statements around such things as adaptability, collaboration, communication, decision making, etc. That was previously in SFIA, but it was not always obviously brought out. Statements. SFIA, we talk in terms of levels 1 to 7. We often use the names that are, if you like, a key feature of SFIA: follow, assist, apply, enable. Those still are unchanged, but by adding the essence statement, which is a summary of autonomy, influence, and complexity for each level, what we've actually done is added an easily readable description of what follow means. An easily readable description of what assist or apply or enable means in the context of a level of responsibility. This has been hugely well received during the beta period, and so it's there, it's well liked. One of the real purposes of this is to bridge that gap between the word follow and then reading a huge amount of text around all of the generic attributes. This makes it very much easier to just be able to have a quick view as to what follow means, what assist means. And people have found that this is particularly useful. We'll show you where it is on the website shortly. And I think, yes, over to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Ian. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to pick up the screen. And what we thought would be really useful is to just a walkthrough of what we've got on the website and the web pages. A really interesting feature with SFIA having this long track record of use is that people are actively using it. So we need to be really careful about how we keep on supporting that. And we can tell from the website stats, looking at where people land and where they go, that an increase in number of people over the last few years have been coming directly to the skills pages. So they're not going via the home page, they're not searching on Google to find SFIA as a search term. They've actually got these links embedded into their workflows or their documents or their personal browsers or skills tools that they're using. So what that has meant, when we see the stats, it's about half the visitors are going directly to skills. So they're actually using it on a day-by-day basis. So that's really encouraging. It's not just we'll find something interesting to look at. They actually want to use the skill definitions. But we want to help that. And what it's meant with the going directly to the skills, some of the principles behind it, what the levels mean, are not obvious to people if you're just using it on a day-to-day basis. So we wanted to find a way to bring that learning, how to use SFIA, into the most popular pages that people are visiting, but without getting in the way of people who are very familiar with it. So we're trying to get a balance. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you. So this page, the A to Z page, prior to this year, was just a long list of the skills. There's no searchable ability there. It was just come here and page down. And again, we could see that people were having to page down. And if you were looking for a skill that started with the later in the alphabet, you had to scroll down quite a few pages to get to that. So we thought we'd do something to help with that. So we've added a search. The search is on the content of the skill, and has some quite interesting features for us, so that if you come into SFIA and you don't actually know the name of the skill you're looking for, which is perfectly reasonable if you're new to it or you're just trying to find what the skills might be for your role, that you might be typing in, for example, a role title. So we went for a data engineer, and then what's that given us? There's no SFIA skill called data engineer, but it starts to match up with some potential skill matches that might be relevant for that. So it's cutting down the list, making the search a bit easier for people. And we could try something a bit broader, like a solution designer. Now that means lots of things to different people, so we don't know exactly what they're looking for, but we come up with a set of skills that might be relevant to that. So it's narrowing the list, making it more usable in that way. If you are familiar with SFIA and you know that exactly where you wanted to go, so you might be saying, well, let's say I'm looking for workforce planning. You can type in the name of the skill, it'll go directly to it. And once people get used to SFIA, they get very used to the 4-letter skill codes, and people would talk about exactly what they are actually looking for. So they might go for the WFPL, which for someone who doesn't know, SFIA doesn't mean anything, but that takes them directly to the skills they may be looking for. So that's worth a try out. That search facility has been quite well received in terms of being able to make things easy to use. Another feature we've got there, which part of us learning as people use SFIA and give us feedback. Over this side, the column called tags, it's not the best name in the world, but what that's about was, while we were going through the beta phase, I added that column so that people who are reviewing SFIA 9 content could see what the change had been. Now, I hadn't intended that to be something we'd keep for a while, but it has been noted that actually, as people get used to the new version of SFIA, that's quite a useful reminder as they're looking through these things. Are these new skills? Is it an existing skill? What size the change it is? It's only a headline version. There's not a lot of information we can fit into that space, but we're going to leave that for a while to help people get used to what's in SFIA 9. This Excel sheet is the gold mine if you really want to dig underneath it. So if you're using SFIA for your roles or wanting to investigate in depth, that goes into far more detail about exactly what's changed. So that's available as a link. Now we've got the generic attributes that Ian said, so they're now also searchable as a list there, so you can find those, and you can see those that in the same style as the skills, but they're focused on the element of behavioral factors and generic attributes. So again, bringing some familiarity to how people can use SFIA. What I'm going to do now is go and look at a particular skill. So again, let's look for stuff in the realm of the user experience. So I'm going to pick on user experience design and use that as an example to show you what we've done to the skills pages. So remember, our aim here is that people visit these pages, but not always familiar what the levels might mean. So what we've done is to add some visual features to this to make it more relevant. The readability things that Ian talked about. So we've got the name, we've got a short description, which gives a quick reminder or a immediate recognition of what this skill is about. The guidance notes are to help people apply this skill into their own environment, into their own workplace, into their own industry. SFIA is a framework, it's not prescriptive. So when we get to the actual level descriptions, they are quite general language. If we tailor them too specifically, then the levels wouldn't mean to some people, but they would for others. So we try and have the balance that says, with the guidance notes there, that helps give some ideas about how you might apply this skill in the workplace. That's been well received. And what we've done for SFIA 9 is expand that across all the skills to the same level. With SFIA 8, we've done it for some, but not all. I'm trying to expand that. So just about every skill now has comprehensive guidance notes of about this length. Right, so we now got the levels here. So we've got a little bar here that shows the levels. If you're familiar with SFIA, you'll know why not all skills appear at all levels. And if you're not familiar, you're getting used to using SFIA, we've got an explanation there, which is understanding what the responsibility levels are. So this explains why lower levels may not be defined, why high levels might not be defined to help position it. But putting it in that format, we can make sure it's hidden if you don't need to see it. The benefit we got from the essence statements that Ian mentioned was not planned, but as we worked through this, we realized we could use it in this way, that we can attach it now to each of the skill levels. So in this case, user experience design level 3, the professional skill is described in the yellow box, and the generic level of responsibility is described under there. So those in combination, that diagram that Ian showed, that's what we're visibly showing now, is that the combination of both of those is what your professional competency is. These can really help if people are not quite sure which level they might be operating at, or what level a job needs, or how to assess someone. You can actually use these in conjunction together. And we know, because these are the same for all skills, that you're getting this ability to see across different skills, help with job mobility, help with comparison, help understand how development paths can move between skills, between roles, etc. So again, that's something I think would be really useful. But once you're used to that, or you don't need it because the purpose, you can hide those. So that's part of it with there. The other navigation thing we have is over this side, which is the related skills. Now, the nature of work is that skills aren't in isolation. Skills are usually work together with other related skills. Certainly when we put together roles, we think about, well, actually this role needs a handful of skills. It's not just one. So to help navigate and find those, we have this section over here, which looks at some of the related SFIA skills. And clicking on there will take to the full definition of those. So people get quite familiar with navigating to one, going horizontally across to there, coming back again, etc. So that works quite nicely as a visual way of seeing what's in the framework without having to go up and down to a hierarchy of skills. If there's interest in going back a version, so if you're looking at this and saying, well, what does SFIA 8 looks like? That's easily done through that link there. And then here we've added the notes that explain what's changed for SFIA 9. So this will be of real interest to people who are moving to SFIA 9, which we'll talk about later, and just gives a summary of what's in there so people can track through. If you're familiar with this skill and you're thinking, well, what's changed? There's the clues about what's actually happened and changed. And then finally, over this side, we have the ability to go back to that A to Z search directory. We can go and look at the levels of responsibility, which I'll do shortly. We can look at the skills profiles. So that's where we've got this set of industry standard profiles with suggested SFIA skills, and we can also link through to the body's knowledge, which is the directory of those that Ian mentioned. So the aim of that is to try and make things much more easy to use, and we're responding to the fact we have lots of people using SFIA and wanting to come to the site and use it to help them. Now, that has carried forward now into how we look at the levels of responsibility. So for previous version, they've kind of been described in a different way, but what we've had is the feedback, well, why can't you describe those in a similar way that you did the good work on the skills for SFIA 8? So we've now looked at how we can do that. So each of the levels has got the essence statement that Ian showed on the slide, and then as we open these up, we've then now got a familiar look to it now, where we've got the name. We're using the essence statement as that short summary. We've got some guidance notes there, and then we break down the level into the familiar attributes we've got. The big bonus we've got now is that, having worked out or been able to allocate each of the behavioral factors, we're able to make those much easier to see. So instead of being a paragraph of text, we're able to make those a bit more obvious in terms of what behavioral factors are what within there. What that then gives users to the ability to do is start to think about, well, which of those, how do I prioritize those for the work that I do or for the roles that we need, and be able to give some sort of weight in prioritization, so that actually, you know, in this particular role that we've got operating at level 3, these might be the ones that are most important for us. So some more directed focus, development, or coaching conversations, or performance in terms of what's really important to make this role work. So that looks really helpful for people there. And then the other bit we can look at is to dig underneath the attributes. So I'll pick autonomy as an example. So now you see again, this looks very much like the professional skills, a name, a code, short description, guidance notes, and then the levels. And then if we look at one of the other ones, maybe communication, more of a behavior there. So we've got the same look and feel. The name, the code, short description, guidance notes about what SFIA means for that, and then the levels there. So what we're trying to do is to give people a really useful way to get hold of and consume what's within SFIA. The principles haven't changed. The mechanism working hasn't changed, but we're trying to make it much easier to people to use, based on the fact that we see people coming direct to these pages. The document that Ian mentioned, so this is the one now that really explains how these things fit together, and we've made the effort to put lots of little graphics in here to make this more visually appealing and easier to follow. So I definitely recommend you look at that. It's a way of seeing what's in there. And sorry, I'm just checking my next steps. So I'm going to show you just while we're here. So what we've added as well, and I'll put a link in there, and Ian's going to talk about this as well, but we've got a page here which we're saying is our quick links page. We've got a QR code for this that's on the slides Ian's got, but this is if you want to just come here and find everything on a page in terms of what things might be useful, this is what we've got in place. So this will have a life that lasts for the period of the SFIA 9 launch for the next a few weeks, a couple of months, and come here, you can find all the things that are available around SFIA 9. Everything that Ian's talked about will have a link there, plus more of the resources that are around that might be useful. What we're really keen, we know, because people who are attending these are not always at the same level in terms of how long they've been using SFIA. Some people are investigating SFIA. Some people are looking at SFIA 9 and heard about it and coming to find out what's all about. Is that you let us know what you'd like to know more about. We couldn't fit everything into a webinar. If we delved into deep in some areas, it wouldn't be what others wanted to see. But we think if we give this a chance for you to say, having attended this webinar, now I'm in a bit better position to think about what my other questions might be, or other areas I'd like to delve in. So I've got a form set up, which I'm going to put the link in the chat, and it's on the slides as well. Apologies for using a form. I couldn't think of any better way of doing it, but it's quick and easy to do. And just to give you a chance either after this webinar or some point over the next few weeks, just to say, actually, haven't thought about this. I'd really love to get together with other SFIA users or the SFIA Foundation and find out a bit more. We find those conversations really, really useful. So if you're a bit shy about coming forward and thinking, I wouldn't want to bother them, it's such a an easy question, please do not think like that. It's really helpful to get this community going, get people asking questions and taking part in that. And there's no better way than getting together in smaller groups and a chance to explore topics. People on the call and others who have been part of the community know that when we get small groups together, we can talk for ages about what's in SFIA and how to use it. So they're really, really useful conversations. So that will be, I'll put that in the link now. And I think, Ian, I've covered everything I need to. So I'm going to stop sharing and then you can pick up from there.
Okay, perfect. So I think I'm now sharing the screen again. Right. Peter's shown you through what we've done specifically with the framework and some links to other support assets. I'm going to talk specifically about moving to SFIA and then cover off some of the things that there are links on that quick links page to. So moving to SFIA 9, essentially, the industry is used to change, so it's not a surprise that things are updated. It's an incremental update, and actually SFIA 8, SFIA 7 and SFIA 6 are still available, so you can still see them on the website. If you are really using one of the earlier versions solidly, it is not going to disappear. To provide some help to enable you to make the decision about when to move or how to move, we've provided a number of resources. Peter mentioned that in every SFIA 9 skill there are revision notes, a sort of what's changed, how this is different from before, and actually we've also added to the SFIA 8 skills guidance on making the move from SFIA 8 to SFIA 9. There's also the SFIA 9 change tracker, which is the real low-level detail of what has changed from SFIA 8 to SFIA 9, and obviously that's available in Excel as a download, and you can sort and filter as you wish. And we've also produced two documents, one of which is moving to SFIA 9, looking at the themes that we looked at related to skill changes. And then the other one is moving to SFIA 9 with a skill by skill analysis, which again goes into the detail of what's changed. So those resources are there for people who really do want to get under the covers of the difference between SFIA 8 and SFIA 9, and are most useful to those that have already significant investment in using SFIA 8 and are looking to make that move at an appropriate time. And I'll emphasize that again. Any organization that is new to SFIA or about to start looking at trying to focus on skills within their organization should simply look to SFIA 9. There is no point in looking back at SFIA 8 or earlier versions. And indeed, the additional assets that the SFIA Foundation provides will largely be focused on SFIA 9 going forward. For those organizations that are already very skills focused and in particular have invested in SFIA 8 collateral or even earlier, there are some big organizations that are still focused largely on SFIA 7. They need to think about their best migration path. They don't have to update today because SFIA 8, 7 and 6 will remain available. But there may be a time when it's appropriate to make that migration because, quite frankly, SFIA 9 is a much richer resource. If you are looking to migrate or upgrade at some point, by all means contact the SFIA Foundation directly. Those are our email addresses to discuss or what might be the right approach for you, or to find out more. Simply talk to us. So contact us, and we're very happy to talk, as Peter said. There are other means of support. There's from others within the community. There are forums, particularly in Australia. There's a public sector SFIA users forum, which has become more than just public sector. So it's a collection of users who are happy to share what their experiences. And indeed, by all means, speak to your SFIA partner organization or SFIA consultant who's helping you with what you've done to date. They should be able to advise on the best approach to migration from where you are to where you might want to go using SFIA 9. I said you don't have to right now. It's not a question of just a switch over. Previous versions of SFIA will remain available. And if you're getting good use out of SFIA already, some organizations may feel they don't want to rush into moving to SFIA 9. But as I've mentioned, SFIA 9 is a much richer resource. And so at some appropriate point, it might very well be necessary or relevant or appropriate for an organization to start to exploit SFIA 9 rather than SFIA 8 or 7. Just simply elements like the fact that there's extra functionality within the website, that things are better presented, some of the descriptions are better. It's just a richer resource. The focus on making SFIA easier to use, easier to consume, is not tied to a particular release. It's about how SFIA itself is used. We send out a newsletter to anyone willing to accept it. So make sure if you are interested, you register on the website to get our update information from the SFIA Foundation. We talk about what's changed. We talk about what's coming along. We announce elements of, from a user forums perspective, who's done what and what might be useful to others. Having refreshed the explanation of how SFIA works and the levels of responsibility, generic attributes, etc., that's all available on the website, and we will provide more information and more updates with regards to how it is used and how it fits together and what organizations are doing with it via this route. So take a look at that page, but make sure you're registered for the purposes of receiving regular updates about SFIA as a whole, if that's of interest to you. Specifically, the points that Peter showed you were elements that we've refreshed on the website to make SFIA easier to consume. We have a few other areas that we will add enhancements to. They won't change the framework itself, but we are in a position to make the website a more useful resource. We have the help and resources area on the website. We have a user forum where people are happy to share work that they've done and provide additional guidance. We have a number of SFIA views available. We have updated those from SFIA 8 to SFIA 9. So there is a framework for cybersecurity skills that is published and available now. There's SFIA, a framework for cloud computing skills, available today. We are working on a framework for AI skills that's under development at the moment. We plan to release a beta of that quite soon, which will identify how SFIA is best used within the AI environment. And we have the existing skills from SFIA 8 that have been updated to SFIA 9 for agile environments, DevOps environments, big data, data science environments, those focused on enterprise IT, digital transformation, and a new area, digital health, we started to look at under SFIA 8. The digital health roles are extensive. There are a number of skills necessary that were not in SFIA 8, and those have been added to SFIA 9 to make sure that we can address that quite significant sector. We've updated a number of other support assets around illustrations of career paths, illustrations of sample role profiles across digital roles in general, also specifically for cybersecurity, in particular the SFIA leveled nice work roles, provide career paths for the work roles and identifies what different levels within those roles at which they can be practiced within industry. Those have been well liked, and we are working on those now to jointly publish with the NICE program in the US. We're doing a similar thing with the UK Cybersecurity Council specialisms. We produce those for SFIA 8 and we will update them for SFIA 9, and we've done that for other areas as well, and we'll use the same approach for publishing a set of digital health roles, role profiles for people in that health sector to be able to pick up and use the SFIA framework across not just their, if you like, their digital roles, but their health roles as well. And we've provided a lot of other general guidance around such things as assessment. We have a SFIA visual guide to self-assessment, and there's guidance material on the website as to how to go about assessing the skills of individuals. All of that is support assets to enable you to use SFIA effectively in those sorts of areas. And many have been updated to SFIA 9, the rest will be updated to SFIA 9 in due course, and there will be more planned going forward. A bit of a pictorial view about those skills, about those views. The full framework view exists, of course. That's what people are familiar with. That's all of the current skills in SFIA, and we have views for Agile, DevOps, etc. And those have all been brought up to SFIA 9, and we have SFIA, the cybersecurity view is now brought up to SFIA 9. The cloud computing view is brought up to SFIA 9, and the digital health is in development along with the AI view for SFIA. Talked about the health, the help and resources stuff. We absolutely have sample role profiles. They're available. Some of them are illustrated on the right-hand side of the slide. All of that is available to SFIA users. So we have sample roles for the nice work roles, the UK cybersecurity specialisms, the ANISA ECSF roles, the DDAT from the UK, and digital health. We have mappings to COBOT and ITIL, and there are various mappings from training providers and qualification providers using SFIA. I mentioned the assessment guidance. There are downloads for those areas on the website, and we have a number of other assets that are evolving community practice, if you like, where we share the experiences of organizations that are using SFIA and making that available for others to use. More is planned in that area, but as you can see from what's on the right-hand side, there are many, many things you can get access to help explain how you can make use of SFIA within particular scenarios or environments. We have the same standard downloads as we've always produced, so you can download in PDF form a document about SFIA that explains how SFIA works. You can download a PDF version of the entire framework if you wish. The summary chart is another PDF download. It's very, very popular because it is a single sheet that describes what skills are available, at what levels they can be practiced, and every skill name there is in fact hyperlinked into the SFIA website, so you can use that PDF as another route to navigation to what you're looking for. Very, very popular download. And we also have the Excel spreadsheet, which enables people to use SFIA for their own personal skills development and be able to use it, for example, for assessing their own skills. It allows organizations to take SFIA as on the Excel spreadsheet and use it internally for their own skills development, or indeed build SFIA into their own HR systems, which is becoming increasingly popular. It's also a download that's used by those organizations that exploit SFIA commercially. So any licensed SFIA partner can make use of that that Excel spreadsheet to import SFIA into their commercial offerings, and therefore support their client base. I'd encourage you to, if you are looking at organizations that have SFIA tools available, I'd encourage you to look at the SFIA website to see those organizations that are licensed to do that. So what next? I had a question where I think I had confused people in earlier webinars. So just to be absolutely clear, SFIA 9 is now live and available in English. That is SFIA 9. The translations of SFIA 9 into the other languages that we support have also been released, but are currently at beta, and they will remain at beta until our volunteers and translators have reviewed them, at which point they will be formally announced as no longer at beta and they are released. So just to say that again, SFIA 9 in English is formally released. The translations today are beta releases and will be updated as soon as we possibly can. We'll be focusing on other elements to make SFIA easier to consume, and those are particularly useful to those organizations that are using SFIA and for us supporting the global community. There'll be new SFIA support assets. Our collaborations continue. There'll be some new ones, and we're explicitly looking at how frameworks can work together, as it is quite often the case that some organizations want to use a framework alongside SFIA, and it's not always straightforward. So we're going to provide some guidance in that area. We will also be updating, refreshing, developing further the support infrastructure, which is all of the stuff that we do behind the scenes to release an update. You might not be surprised to know that to manage a global community, providing input, describing what needs to change, reviewing, supporting that process is a very considerable resource drain, if you like. We have produced a number of things that allow us to do things in a controlled way and do it repeatably and do it regularly, and we will be doing more to make that easier, more efficient and effective for ourselves going forward, because we are an incredibly lean central foundation, making use of an extensive network of volunteers, and we need to be able to do that in an effective way. So finally, to close, Peter mentioned the form and also mentioned that quick links page. So the quick links page covers far, far more than is on this slide. You can get to it using the URL at the top, or the QR code will take you there directly. I'd encourage you to go there because it's the way of finding most of the assets, either directly associated with the framework or the support elements, and it allows you to get to them very quickly. So it's a very, very useful resource. And finally, to close, SFIA is, we use the term SFIA to mean everything. SFIA is more than just the global common language for skills. It is an engaged global community. It's what allows us to produce this stuff. It's what allows us to provide an update for industry every 3 years, which I think is unique amongst frameworks. So most cannot do what we do in terms of these regular releases to remain current and relevant to industry. We should also ask you to get involved in the SFIA community. The SFIA products the framework and the support assets all evolve, and this builds on the rich resource that is already there, and we'd encourage you to get involved to help develop more for the good of everyone. Please contact the SFIA Foundation directly. As Peter said, we find those discussions, your queries, your requests, your discussions on how you use SFIA, we find them incredibly useful to enable us to develop assets that enable SFIA to be effectively used. And an awful lot of that input then goes into the next update. So please don't hold back. Talk to us about what you're doing with SFIA, what you'd like to see in SFIA, and any issues that you're having in terms of using SFIA. And finally, there is the link to the form that we've mentioned. I think Peter's also put it in the chat. Please use that. It tells us what you might like from some short-term additional sessions, which can either go into a deep dive about SFIA 9 or talk about particular queries you have, or get a group together discussing a particular topic that's of relevance to you. So please use that to tell us what you want, what you might be querying with SFIA 9. And with that, I believe we've come to the end of this session. Just the bit in brackets at the bottom, if you are a SFIA user or you're interested in SFIA or you are just finding out about SFIA, please register on the SFIA website. You will need to register if you want to download anything, but otherwise SFIA is entirely visible to everybody. And please talk to us about how you're using SFIA, because it helps us to develop SFIA for the future. And if you're experiencing some issues with using SFIA, you can be pretty certain others are, and the community is very happy to share how it addresses things. And with that, I will say thank you for your attendance. The video of this will be made available along with the slides very shortly. And a quick question to Peter, have I missed anything?
No, I don't think so, and we're just about on time, and lots of names I recognise in the chat and new ones, so it's really great to meet everyone, and thanks for all your very kind words. It's very rewarding to get that feedback, so thank you for taking the time to put that in the chat. That's great.
So with that, we'll stop the recording and formally close the session. But feel free after this event to contact us with any queries you may have. We'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.